The 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup will see the best footballers on the planet do battle. Debinha is ready to thrill for South American champions Brazil, while an ongoing dispute could jeopardize Spain's World Cup hopes. Immerse yourself in the biggest sporting event of the year with the Contenders. Debinha is a quintessential Brazilian footballer who sits in the top echelon when it comes to the world's best players. A dynamic forward with that trademark Brazilian flair and an eye for goal, Debinha continues to get better with age. A mainstay for the Seleção since making her debut in 2011, Debinha is one of just 3 Brazilian women to score 50 international goals. She found the back of the net 5 times as Brazil were crowned 2022 Copa America champions, netting the winner from the penalty spot against Colombia in the final. The 1-0 win clinched Brazil's 4th Copa America in a row, and by making the final, they secured direct qualification for the 2023 Women's World Cup. Debinha's form at club level has been just as impressive. She scored 12 goals and provided 4 assists in 18 appearances for the North Carolina Courage in the 2022 National Women's Soccer League season, finishing 3rd in the Golden Boot.
Debinha! Debinha tips! Debinha! Hat-trick! 3-0 North Carolina!
The diminutive Brazilian was named the 2022 NWSL Challenge Cup's most valuable player after firing the Courage to their first cup crown.
Debinha is a thing of beauty.
She scored in 5 consecutive games, a record in the Challenge Cup, to take out the MVP award for the 2nd straight year.
Back to Debinha! The most exciting player in the world, Debinha!
A seasoned pro in the prime of her career, Debinha is Brazil's X-Factor player. Having learned from the likes of Marta and Cristiano, 2 legends of Brazilian football, she is now a leader the Seleção will be counting on at the 2023 World Cup. After failing to score at the 2019 finals, Debinha will look to bounce back down under as the South Americans attempt to win the Women's World Cup for the first time. Up next, a mass player walkout has rocked Spain's World Cup preparations. While they're not one of the traditional powers of women's football, it's fair to say Spain have underachieved on the international stage. La Roja have never progressed beyond the round of 16 at a Women's World Cup, and the last time they made the semi-finals of a major tournament was at the 1997 European Championship. Possessing a talented squad containing some of the world's best players, they will be expecting to compete at the pointy end of the 2023 World Cup. And making a winning start is imperative to achieving success in Australia and New Zealand.
The focus will be the first match. because you can always be nervous. You want to start with a positive result so you can feel more relaxed after winning those first 3 points. Then, the players, who are very excited, can also be focused. Playing in the World Cup is the biggest tournament for a player. I'm sure that they are already thinking about the World Cup and playing with the national team.
One of the earliest European nations to punch their ticket to the 2023 finals, Spain won all 8 games in qualifying, scoring 53 goals without conceding. They were among the favourites heading into Euro 2022, but injuries to star pair Alexia Putellas and Jennifer Hermoso on the eve of the tournament dashed their title hopes. Without the key duo, Spain finished second in their group before bowing out at the quarter-final stage to eventual champions England. Spain's hopes of winning the World Cup could hinge on Putellas' availability after the FIFA Best Player of 2022 sustained. A 2-time winner of the Ballon d'Or, Putellas is the face of women's football in Spain and a source of inspiration to millions of young girls around the world. A technically gifted attacking midfielder with natural leadership qualities, she's been integral to Barcelona's emergence as a powerhouse in women's club football.
I set myself a few goals in the mid and long term, and among them is winning something with the Spanish national team. I've achieved my first goal, which was winning the Champions League, and now we have 3 beautiful years ahead. They may look similar, but they are different from one another because of the competitions at stake. This year is about the European Cup, and next year, the World Cup. And if the World Cup goes well, then eventually it will be the Olympic Games.
Putellas will hope to lead Spain out for their World Cup opener against Costa Rica on July 21 in Wellington. They've also been drawn alongside former world champions Japan and African debutantes Zambia in Group C.
I think all the groups are even. For us, it was different, because we were in the first pot. I'm not saying Japan isn't a good team. On the contrary, they play very well as a collective. Costa Rica is a very competitive team, and we know Zambia is very fast, because a few players compete in the Spanish league. So every match and every victory will be a conquest.
As the World Cup edges closer, discontent lingers within the Spanish camp, which threatens to derail their tournament. Multiple players, including Putellas, are locked in an ongoing dispute with the Spanish Football Federation over the management style of coach Jorge Vilda. 15 members of the Spain squad declared themselves unavailable for selection, claiming Vilda has created a toxic environment that's affecting their health and emotional state. Despite the player protest, Vilda has the support of the Spanish Football Federation and will remain as coach for the 2023 World Cup.
First of all, this is a totally abnormal situation, which I'd say is very difficult to manage. But I have no doubt the Federation is going to manage it in the best possible way.
The stance of the Spanish players is similar in France, where Wendy Renard, Marie-Antoinette Katoto, and Kadidiatou Diani have withdrawn from the tournament due to the current conditions within the national team.
Ultimately, what they want is to, challenge to be the best team in the world and to win championships and to continue to grow the program. Obviously, the play on the field is there. Some of the best players in the world, obviously the best player in the world last year, coming out of Spain. So it's really sad to see, but as we've seen in our country and elsewhere, women's players continue to have to fight for what seems like the bare minimum and treatment and resources and just general respect. So, I know for myself personally, but everyone here, we're always with the players 100%.
The standoff could have a detrimental impact on Spain's World Cup chances. with Vilda forced to pick an under-strength squad for February's Cup of Nations tournament. While their reserve players have shown they can compete at the highest level, a full-strength lineup is required if Spain are to go all the way at the 2023 World Cup.
It seemed quite reasonable what they were asking for, so hopefully the Federation can sort of let its guard down a little bit and be able to speak to the players, and they can have open and honest conversation and say where the program needs to get better and take that constructive criticism on to ultimately push on. I mean, the World Cup is less than 12 months away, so obviously the World Cup would be less if the Spanish team wasn't at its very best.
Thank you.
Spain's off-field problems look set to be one of the 2023 World Cup's biggest stories. Due to the growth of women's sport, clothing manufacturers are creating more tailored female attire to accommodate athletes at all levels. Women competing in white-colored clothing continues to be an ongoing debate, given the challenges faced during menstrual cycles. England's triumphant women's national team wore their traditional all-white kit at the 2022 European Championship, despite concerns from players. Members of the Lioness squad asked kit manufacturer Nike to change the color of their shorts due to the impracticality of wearing white while on their period.
I think it's a really great conversation to have, and I think it's important that we have these conversations. That it's not to say that yes, we play football and we are on our periods, and definitely there's been feedback with Nike and about the kit.
To combat period anxiety, English clubs such as Manchester City will no longer make their women's teams wear white shorts. And football isn't the only sport where the issue has been raised. In a significant change for women's tennis, Wimbledon has relaxed its strict all-white dress code to allow female players to wear dark-colored undershorts.
I think it's important that we are talking about it and made aware of what we can do to help support women when they are on their periods. And we've got great support in this England team of having a conversation about periods and how we can help with the phases and stuff like that. So it's a great conversation and one that we need to continue to have, really.
And after receiving player feedback, England's kit for the 2023 Women's World Cup could take on a different look. The Football Association are reportedly seeking to replace the team's all-white uniform with a darker-coloured short after initiating talks with FIFA.
Our kit is lovely. But yeah, I think, at times, when you are on your period, there obviously, you do worry a little bit about that. But I think it's an important conversation to have.
Coming up, Zambian football is on the rise after qualifying for their maiden Women's World Cup.
Having children fits into a professional career quite well. I mean, there are a lot of advancements in maternity leave and, contract negotiations and making sure players are well looked after through FIFPro and the PFA and the Players' Federations. So looking after the players' rights in terms of human rights, having a child and continuing on with their work. So it can seamlessly happen as long as the club is supportive and they do what's best for the athlete. I think the difference is a lot of clubs haven't really had a lot of experience with children at their clubs because most male players have a partner that's at home, and because they have earned enough money, they can have and afford to have their partner at home full-time. So they haven't really had to think about it. I think the only other thing that clubs need to get better at is negating that guilt that women have in terms of, there is no reason why I can't continue to play. In terms of training, you have to put yourself first because you can't physically look after your child in the time that you're training. And mothers always think they can't go to work because they're leaving the child in someone else's hands, and what if something happens? So a lot of that guilt is a whole of motherhood thing. I think football clubs are embracing motherhood because children bring people together. I don't know if you've ever noticed, I know a lot of people that have said, nah, I don't like kids, I don't want kids around me, but you put a baby anywhere amongst a team, male or female, everyone's goo-goo gaga. Everyone's acting the clown. Everyone, the coaches or the players bring their players their kids onto the field after the game. There's always a couple of players that are out there mucking around with them, pretending to get, scored against or those sorts of things. And you really start to embrace your teammates more, how they embrace your child, how they want to look after them, and it really brings a team together. I think practically the best thing that clubs can do professionally is to have that, area. A lot of the times it's a change room, it's a football field, access to a living space where, the kids can play, that someone can look after them, and just making the professional club safe and, all the right amenities, change table at least. For me personally, I asked for my mum to keep my daughter in Melbourne at home, where I knew she was safe. I knew my mum was comfortable in looking after her, whereas my teammate preferred to have her child with her. She had to pay a lot of money for that to happen because there wasn't the subsidy in place then. Now, a player like Katrina Gorry, for example, she can bring her child over. Her mother can stay in an adjacent hotel with the child. Mother is happy, grandmother is happy, child is happy, and it works because the subsidy is there for the child, and having those allowances make it a little bit easier. At the moment, it's still thought of as a hindrance for a lot of players. Having children does halt your career. Nobody wishes an ACL on anyone, but it's that sort of timescape when you think of it, and a lot of players wouldn't want that time out of their career. If you can and come back, it's really just a blip on the radar, like an ACL. It's frustrating, it's hard, but you still get over it, you still come out stronger in the end. So it's slowly changing. A lot of groundbreakers are making it easier for the younger generations.
One of two African Women's World Cup debutantes, Zambia's opportunity to play on the game's biggest stage has finally arrived. Zambia qualified for the 2023 World Cup by making the Final Four at the 2022 Africa Cup of Nations, becoming the first landlocked African country to qualify for a Senior World Cup, men's or women's. A narrow 1-0 semi-final loss to South Africa was a heartbreaking moment for the Copper Queens, but they ended the campaign on a positive note, beating 11-time African champions Nigeria to finish the tournament in third place. Zambia's standout players were defender Margaret Bellemew and midfielder Grace Chanda. The pair were rewarded for their excellent displays with selection in the team of the tournament. Zambia's best ever finish at the Cup of Nations, coupled with playing at the Olympics for the first time and qualifying for a maiden World Cup, has ignited women's football back home. Our achievements recently show that there has been a lot of improvement in Zambian football, Coach Bruce Mwape said. The She Polo Polo are no longer the easy beats they once were, and they'll look to upset the apple cart against Group C opponents Spain, Japan, and Costa Rica. One of 8 first-timers competing down under, Zambia will make their World Cup debut against the Japanese on July 22 in Hamilton. Still to come, how Asia and Oceania are strengthening ties ahead of the 2023 World Cup.
Every member association is different, has its own culture, has its own way of delivering football, but we share so many of the same challenges. And while not every member association is the same, there are always opportunities to explore that can be maximised, learn from each other's mistakes, but also learn from each other's opportunities.
In May 2022, senior executives from member associations across Asia and Oceania converged in Dubai to attend the FIFA Executive Program. Run by FIFA in conjunction with education partner International Center for Sport Studies, the program provided multifaceted and comprehensive training to member association general secretaries and key administrative staff. A key focus of the program was for executives to share their ideas and experiences to improve the level of football management globally and learning best practices for sports governance.
This kind of learning opportunities is always important for us because we can learn, we can get new information from each other, and also when we share the information with each other, we can notice the positives and or negatives what we have in our organization as well. So it's a great opportunity to be inspired to go to the next step.
There was also a particular focus on the benefits of increasing numbers of women appointed to leadership positions at FIFA member associations.
I think one of the key improvements that we've seen is the increase of women in leadership, and I think it's a key area to work on. In the past, everybody knows football is a very male-dominated industry. So having women in decision-making really helps, to balance the decision-making in that sense. So, and then it trickles down to women in football and women footballers. So it helps us, in a more holistic decision-making process.
More females in leadership roles is especially relevant, given the 2023 Women's World Cup will be held in Australia and New Zealand.
Women think differently. They think about their personal life, their family, what keeps them happy. So, it's kind of like bringing in everything together. So you have men and women both sharing the decision making. That I feel, is a good progress forward.
It's also the first time 2 confederations will jointly host a FIFA World Cup, making the program a key moment of cooperation for both Asia and Oceania.
We are in a good space with regards to Oceania, but we are also on the doorstep of Asia. And, we share a lot of cultural similarities, and we share a lot of opportunities to collaborate further between Asia and Oceania. So that partnership, which you've seen in the Women's World Cup bid and the hosting, is only the beginning of how the 2 confederations could work together in the future.